we lived in Tladi, Soweto. First of all, we exit through the fence on days when we see where he's at. And then we run for our lives in the straight line, right? We get out from the fence, kama morago. Thankfully, the whole fence that we came out of was closer to home for us than... Because sometimes it was used as a double up. I told you guys that, right? It was convenient for some people if they lived on this side of the street of the school. But if you lived on the opposite side of the school, you would have to get out the fence and then go all the way around just to go home type thing. So that was a challenge of some of the other girls that had to go home around that way. But with us, where it is that our street was at, one of the holes was on this side. But this guy also sometimes used to chill on the street where we stayed, or go this one Magwenya fat cake place called Bethlehem, right? It was called Bethlehem. They would chill there outside of the shop. So we were opposites the Bethlehem, right? It was on the other side. But sometimes this dude would be here and not so much go Bethlehem. So on the days when he was at Bethlehem Magwenya joint, we would of course use the street where we lived. And there was like a whole big chunky soccer patch in the middle. So if he decided to run after us, we would have enough time to run home, right? But on the day when he was on this side of the road, the hole that would be used was on the other side of the school. And we would then run down the street, go starting to Bethlehem. My goodness. And then go around some church and then only get home. Like it was like a whole thing. But this dude, on the days when we didn't know when we could not sight him, when basically he was not in our line of sight for us to, stealthily just kind of hide your way until you get all the way home. We could not just go out on a limb by faith that Hayoko Bethlehem or Hayoko Strate, or that he's not there by Bethlehem, the Magwenya joint, or chilling on the street where it is that is an up pathway going home. On the days when there was no knowledge of where he was at, because he was not in our line of sight, we didn't see that Kyole. So I was doing so, but going via Bethlehem was long, but it was longer than using this side, because this is the school, this is where we stayed, so we could just go straight. But if it was Bethlehem, we'd get out on the other side of the school and then go down around the church and then home. It was farther, but it was still okay. Thank God we were children, right? Utmost stamina, height of our physical strength. We were agile. Yes, like it, but I couldn't. Thank God we were agile because we were children. But frankly, this dude took us out of our way. He took us out of our comfort zone. That little bamboo. On the days when we could not see him, we would go. We lived in Tladi, Soweto. The school was in Tladi. We would, are you listening to me? Go to Muletsani, do you understand? And then go on the main road that was bustling with activity. Because remember, this guy hated adult presence, the presence of other teenagers that were his age. Anybody that was basically, that could handle him, kariwashing. He would never in front of these people hurt. So we would use the path of most company. Like the route that would, even if he just so happened to be there, he would probably just let us walk by. Because people were watching. He was the kind of person to trap you in an alleyway that's dark at night, like a place that's generally unfrequented by footsteps. That's where he used to accost the girls. So our street was busy but not busy enough. Like it was not the main road. There's like a main road, Kotladi, that was tarred. So y'all know how in Soweto it took forever and a day once apartheid was repealed for them to build actual streets. Everything was just gravel for like a minute. But for main roads, like arteries of Soweto were tarred, but the inroads were just gravel. It's ridiculous. Okay. So our street was gravel. Bethlehem Street was also gravel, but the main road was tarred. And that's where taxis were up and down. That's where lots of bustling activity. That's where people were going to and from work. That is where people got off, like the main stop for the taxi were at. Just a bustling main road. And it's like a lot of activity. That's where people were chilling outside of their gates, just looking at people pass by. Having conversation and all that jazz. Like basically the activity of Soweto, you know how it goes, right? Yeah, the main road had all that activity, and it was our best chance of getting home without being accosted by this freak. So on the days when he was not in our line of sight, we would run like no man's business out of the school, right? Using the gate, the main gate. Because you see, this is the school. The main gate was perhaps like, let's say the school is here. The main gate was here. And then if at all we're not using the hole in the fence that is like at the back of the school here to use the route to go home, we would exit through the gate and then go around that way and then travel on this road. So go around and then travel on this road to go home. That was when in simpler days and easier days when nobody was giving anybody grief. There was a fence, a gate that they would open in the mornings only. At the back of, like on this side of the on this side of the school, they would open it in the mornings only for us to go in. But in the evening, in the afternoons, this gate was closed and it stayed closed, and kids would have to now use the gate akamontle with the double gate thing. So we were forced to take long try. Every one of us, even if this gate was most convenient for us to exit through, hence why kids sometimes use the holes in the fences, because those holes were closer to home, right? But after school, everybody was supposed to exit using the main gate at the front or the back of the school. I don't know what you want to call it, right? And this road gave us, it was a longer route home, but not too much longer, like maybe 400 meters that you had to walk down this particular road and then turn right and then go home. That's how it was with us. But if you stayed on this road and you just kept walking, you would then eventually happen upon the main road, right? The one that's bustling, that is tarred. Yeah. So this exit, we would use it. And remember this guy, we got out of the school and then ran, right? Because we did not know where he was at. We would get out of the school on the days that we can't see him, Horoko guy, and then run like Kasta Semenya all the way to the main road. And then only once we got to the main road, we'd be like, stop breathing. But yes, like the main road was in, like, to get to it, it was the beginning of it, at the very uppermost of it was Moletsane. It was basically, how can I describe it? It's like moving from Wilgehevel to Strubens Valley. If at all you're from the west of Johannesburg in South Africa, it's like moving from Wilgehevel to Strubens Valley. It's not far, but it's literally a new neighborhood. It's a new, like, the connecting neighborhood, the border of one neighborhood and another. We would cross it. We went from Tladi to Mletsane, like kissing townships. Yeah, what the heck? Just to escape this bugaboo. Just to elude him. We would never have had to leave the borders of Tladi and enter into the borders of Moletsane if it was not for this menace. And the border of Moletsane, like I told you guys, when you're a kid, everything seems so much bigger, everything seems so much longer, everything, it is a distance even today, like that, it's quite a distance to think about it. As a grown woman, so how much more of a distance is it as a child, for crying out loud? This little buffoon made us walk from, because of just running away from him, go to Mletsane first, and then only walk down to Tladi. Thank God it was downhill. That's why I get it down, because it was a steep upward to go to Mletsane. But it was such a long route that, frankly, it was unsustainable. And God saw the sorrow of our souls. Here it is that we are walking from Mletsane. Do you understand what I'm saying? And then down back to Tladi. And then once we are at the not T-junction, but at the crossroads, we then would turn right, and that's only then at that stage when we're actually entering our neighborhood, and then we'd go home. He made us take the rides, so now guys, we either would go, so there were two main roads. There was the one yako Mletsane or the one yako Mapetla. There was one yako Mletsane, and then the one yako Mapetla. Depending on how we feel for the day, we'd either use the Mapetla side or the Mletsane side. But basically we had to leave our neighborhood just to escape this guy. The circles we ran, the circles we ran just to get home were ridiculous. And you see, our parents expected us to be home, our grandmother in particular, because our parents tended to be at work during the day, expected us to be home by a certain time, and when we were late, we would actually be getting yelled at. On some why lifitle ka nakwe, skolo situle ka nakwe ne leloko kae, skolo situle, yeah, school came out at this time, where were you all this time, where were you? I told you this, I told you that, what about a fish paste? And it got us into some kind of hot water. So the running did help, because it made the time that we arrived at home sort of kind of negligible to a certain extent, but it was still noticeable enough for my grandmother to be like, why are you guys arriving home so late some days? What is holding you? But then we were like, no, it's just that we were dragging our feet when we were walking home, that's it. And my grandmother would let it go, because we did not report it. You see, adults had just at that stage shown us that Deal with them with yourselves. Like your little children problems. Deal with them yourselves. I'm not gonna go and intervene. I'm busy. I've got my own life. So because of their general apathy up to this point, we dealt with this by ourselves. All scared and shaking. But one fateful day, we are coming using the Mletsane route, that main road that's bustling, to go back home from school. Here's these kids walking on a main road, right? The concern with us being on a main road is that it's bustling, it's busy, there's cars all over the show, and it's dangerous for children. It's ideal for you guys to walk on the gravel road, where there's few vehicles, where there's largely foot traffic, and it's of course, the main route to go home. Why would you want to use any different route? But we had a domestic worker. This lady by the name of Oz Georgina, right? That was in her 20s. She lived with us. She was a live-in domestic, and she was largely catering to the needs of my cousin's family, my uncle, basically. I get on my grandmother. Her children were at that stage living on the property, type establishment thing. Yeah. Ostrogina was more the employee of my uncle, but she also catered to the needs of my grandmother. She basically was like a family helper, right? And she lived on the property and slept in the house. My grandmother had given her a bedroom, go into Maranele domestic, largely the catering nanny to the needs of my uncle's family type thing, even though she tended to do favors for pretty much every last one of us. And my grandmother gave her boarding and lodging inside the house. So yeah, she was part of the family, like practically furniture. She had been with us for years. She was like an older sister type thing. A young woman in her 20s that was the live-in maid and used to take care of kids, used to make lunches and all that jazz. That this was this woman, but remember, she's a young woman. She's like, what, 23, 4, right? So Lomuntu uyazula naye when she's got time off, because she gotta live her own life. Right? She's enjoying her youth too. Naya, she also wants to get married. Naya, uyajola. Naya, une boyfriend, whatnot. She's just 22, 3, 4. She's a kid too, but not in the sense that she's a teenager, right? She was slightly older than my older cousin. I told you that we had a boy cousin that was older, right? That whole situation, that story is coming. Yeah, Ostrogina, ne? Because uyazula when she's got free time, especially when the kids are not yet home. She was zularing the neighborhood, like out in these streets, mixing up with her peoples type thing. And here it is that we are coming back from school, the group of us, on that road that is busy, from Kwakohudim. And we are not on the road that is Maraskolo Simole, and Eskolo is on the same road, same little gravel road as where it is that we stay. You naughty children. Is what's making you go to Letzan? Here it is that Ostrogina uyazulekasi, and then here's these little children, here's this group of kids, these 7 children out here walking on that bustling road, like trafficy, like what would be, they imagine how dangerous if you walk, it's better if you walk on the street. Ostrogina, ne? One of these days when she's out just zularizationing, then past us. She finds us, right? We are walking down, going home, right? On this bustling road. And because the bustling road was largely safe, from like this Kefas dude would not do anything there. Because I told you, because he needs a person to be in a conspicuous corner, and that road was too bustling for him to ever try anything of that nature. Bangam vigilante justice right there. They would club him to death, okay? So he would never have touched us. So we were not even running or whatever. We were sort of kind of leisurely, almost like kicking cans down the road while we were walking, the way that kids tend to walk home after school, very playfully. Really fella full of enjoyment. Ostrogina sees us coming from a distance, like she's down the road, right? And she's like, "Hey, Bacho, is that Karabo? Is that Lerato? Is that this? Is that what are these children doing here? What are they doing on this road? Where do they come from? Why would they not use strata sa skolo? Bazotse, dingy, meandering." Basically, like guilty before proven innocent. That is the black child. Like, whatever you do, you are always going to be guilty for some naughty behavior. Or still do, there's something that is causing you. Why, Lizola? You are told, after school, come home immediately. And then you will be given veto, leg room to go and play outside. And so far as you don't just go and dance around. Yeah, and so when they find you on some strange street that's not on in the path of school, Ostodu, you are obviously doing something naughty. You are obviously doing something naughty. Why lilimo? Let's guy. She sees us from down the road. And then stands there, waits for us, right, to get all the way down. And then we see her. We see her, and then she's like, hey Luna. She's like, hey Luna, why are you here? So why are you here? So basically we get yelled at, okay, by this domestic lady, our maid, the domestic worker. And then we start, like, we basically start being like, no man, please don't tell grandmother, blah blah, askisi. We cry like we're guilty. Because in the black community, when you get caught doing something you're not supposed to be doing, you're facing a rod, you are facing a whip, you are facing trapums, you are facing getting a beat down, you are gonna get spanked, okay? And so we started to cry because meandering around Soweto, running away from this guy. This woman obviously This woman obviously is gonna paisa us. She's going to tell on us. She has no reason to keep it a secret. It's not like we had that kind of relationship with her. It's not like it was one of those, the maid and the kids have a special relationship, and so because they have a special relationship, the parents don't need to know some of the stuff that the girl is doing. And to her, we were ill-disciplined and out of line, and we were going to get told on, and we were going to get disciplined so we don't use that road, because apparently it was for our safety, right? Because it's bustling, it's got cars all over the show, and when we are here, there's a risk that one day on someone. So we had to, of course, get a beat down, to get whipped, so that we stop using the route that is putting us in danger. So she's going to tell on us, because apparently it's safe for us. It is in our best interest that we get told on, okay? That we get paisat. It's in our best interests. So we out here crying, and she's out here on some, why? And then she takes us, and we are like sobbing, and we are going home, and we are like, no, Mara, we're speaking underneath our breath on some kifas. We were running away from kifas. And she basically hears her mumbling as she is taking us home, and then she's like, whoa, stop. Like, come on, kifas. Like, she overhears that we are out here mumbling underneath our breath as she's taking us home from finding us on this detour road, okay? And she's like, okay, Emma, okay, happy. Why are you here? Like, why are you on the strata? And eventually one of my older cousins, is like, that's what she said. There is this boy that's basically chasing Lerato around that we're running away from. There is a boy that is silly that we are running away from, That's all that she said. A boy that some guy that we're running away from. Thank God. This woman was a 20-something-year-old woman, so she knows these things. She knows, basically. So we're children, right? In terms of seedy, perverted stuff, we don't really see it as such. Like a whole pervert in an alleyway that's trying to have sex with a child is not going to be seen as a pervert in an alleyway that's trying to have sex with a child. It's going to be seen as an adult that must be obeyed or respected. And when then they start whipping out their manhood in front of a kid, she's not going to see anything wrong with this. But when you're 23 years old and you are sexually active and you know how boys are, you've gone through high school, you then immediately realize that, whoa, there is like a lurking pervert that these kids are scared to speak about because they don't understand what this is. They just feel as if though these kids just feel as if though this is the way that Khulenkatengi, and like I said, it's guilty before proven innocent in the black community. So whenever something happens to a child, it's like there's an almost kind of automatic self-blame for everything that happens to you. Like, you're a bad girl and that's why you're getting raped. You're a bad girl, that's why you're getting slapped. You're a bad girl, that's why you're getting pushed, shoved, that's why you're getting locked in a closet. I was watching something on Netflix where this one guy said kids are like dogs. If you kick them around for long enough, they will think that they had it coming. They will think that they deserve it. They're like dogs. If you kick them around long enough, they'll think that they deserve it, right? That's the way that kids are. If you don't nurture children to essentially realize the difference between right and wrong and speak out when wrong is happening, they will think that every lost grown person that is out just saying if you don't do what is right, I'm going to hurt you, or this here is being a naughty girl or a naughty boy, this kid will literally keep quiet in the climate of a lot of harassment, a lot of abuse, a lot of what do you call this, disregard of their childhood and whatnot. They will take it in their stride and only wake up. Of course, they'll get withdrawn and everything, but they will then think back as adults about how it is that they just stood there and allowed this to happen. They were living in the same house with their mom, and they could have told their mom, but they didn't. They could have, unfortunately, right? So it's the responsibility of grown-ups that love them around their lives to always have their ears on the ground and to also instill in children just this, microphone on the rooftops, just always talk. Even if you feel like it's futile, it's nothing, raise it and I will address it. Let the parent be the one to decide if it's a non-issue because why can't someone know, or if it is actually something important and serious. Type establishment thing, that climate, that nurturing, cultivated that climate of kids trusting that they can report a matter. It needs to be created by the parent set. It needs to be created by the adults around. If they don't create it, the kid will get abused under your nose and you won't know. They will just withdraw. You will literally just not know. And unfortunately, in the black community, that's just the way that it is with us. We are so ignored. Our issues are just so completely just thrown under the carpet that I could report a whole chunk of abuse, and the mother be actually finding out that her boyfriend was raping her daughter. Sana 27, and at a family function, she actually comes out with this dirty laundry, and Wonkumuntu is not distressed. It's just the way that it is. So, black girls, if that's what you come from, black girls, that's the climate of your families. Gunjalo nje. Y'all need God. I can't say this enough. You are not good. This is a monolith. Do you understand? It is a monolith. It's not an immovable structure, but it's deeply rooted enough in the community for you to recognize that absent of divine intervention and unique response to your case that is sufficiently covering, you are going to just drown under a structure that's not going anywhere anytime soon. Your YouTube channel is not enough. You being a life coach is not enough. You trying to comfort and counsel other girls and say, black girls, this is what we can relate with, and have perhaps a TikTok where you address these matters. You can reach 4 or 5 or 7 people. But bottom line is, the whole of the black community is entrenched in this monolithic structure that has got deep foundations. And it is literally every single unique woman for herself. And there is no one that can give you the kinds of ubiquitous protections that a woman generally needs in life but God. You are dealing with a monolith, and no amount of doing a TikTok or creating some kind of a self-help group, like some kind of a life coaching, self-pampering YouTube channel. No amount of creating awareness by writing articles in a blog, or like I said, speaking in a TikTok or a YouTube or Facebook, writing a post on Twitter to create awareness with your even 100,000 followers is going to change a thing. It's a monolith. There are people who don't have access to the internet, and there are so many inefficiencies of existence in the black community that they don't got time to be focusing on your psychological issues. They don't have time to, all of them as a concert, essentially transform, shift, and differently treat black children, especially black girls, so that there are sufficient protections to therefore stay criminals around the black community from eating whole like Pac-Man, our daughters. It's not literally no one is coming for you, black women. And I've said this over and over and over again. And when then you wake up to smell the coffee, that even if you can be a content creator with 500,000 subscribers talking about these issues, should you find yourself unfortunately raped, you will go to a police station that's going to find your tears irritating. As a woman with 500,000 subscribers talking about these issues, you will have a rape kit done by insincere nurses that could not care less. You will have a rape kit done by insincere nurses that are just going through the modes because their job is to do the rape kit and not so much counsel you. You will then be sent over to a counselor that will listen to you because that's their job, but they're just not going to be sufficiently healing or enabling of your person, because what a person needs when they're suffering like that is not merely one person who has a job to be compassionate. It has to be a family structure. It has to be the whole community that acknowledges you've been hurt. And that's the thing that heals. So you can't just lean on one therapist, one psychologist. If your mom does not care and is busy sending you to a shrink, if your dad does not care and is busy sending you to a shrink. If your uncle doesn't care and he's busy sending you to a shrink because it's everybody else's job. Literally the whole thing that Cain said, am I my brother's keeper? That whole am I my brother's keeper thing. If at all people refuse to be your keeper, that one little person that has got a job and is being paid to listen to your troubles is not going to be healing. They're not going to be healing. Because what's important is for everybody to acknowledge you've been hurt. That's how people start to heal. And as a black girl, like I said, I've got a whole YouTube channel speaking about these issues. And yet, I also endure that kind of apathy when I'm out there in the wilderness. People don't know what I say on YouTube. They don't know. They can't relate to my cause and know me as the woman who speaks on these things, that finds healing in her ministry, because I'm just unknown for now. And so because I'm unknown, when then I go through crap as a black woman, I will still be ignored, even though this is the very thing I'm always talking about in my channel. This is the very thing I'm always raising in my channel. The black woman is ignored. Yeah, true, but like, who's coming through for me? Who is coming through for me? So it's not enough to try and create awareness, because like I said, this thing here is a monolith. It is deeply entrenched in the ground. Its roots are wide and they are deep. It is not impossible to uproot, but it is highly unlikely to be uprooted in your lifetime. And it is also highly unlikely to be uprooted before you are damaged goods. Therefore, how do you protect your unique self from this monolithic structure finishing you off? That's where you start to lean on the fact that God is a father to the fatherless. That is when you start leaning on the fact that God takes up the cause of the widow and of the orphan. That is when you need to realize that in the absence of a monolith being corporately uprooted by everybody, you are never going to breathe but for God. He is literally your only way out. Righteous indignation is a thing. I spoke about that earlier. Here it is that Ostrogina is yelling at us, right? Here it is that Ostrogina is yelling at us. Eventually, enough of us mumble underneath our breath that Kefas. Then she's like, whoa, gee, stop. Who's that? Kimango Kefas. Eventually, one of my cousins is like, basically, she's out just saying, we have an excuse, even though you don't care. This kid is speaking about how it is that we have an excuse, but obviously you don't care. You're still gonna get us beaten by grandmother. You're still gonna get us told on. You're still gonna get our parents whipping us. But there's a boy we're running away from, but you're still gonna whip us. That's how we responded. But thankfully, she was grown, and she knew that this is actually dire. It's deep. Here it is that kids don't have an environment that has cultivated, that has nurtured, that has created the. Here it is that kids are in an environment that has not made it easy for them to report issues. They are self-incriminating. They are self-purging. They imagine that they're guilty before they're innocent because they've been ignored and rebuffed so much every time they brought anything up that they are now scared to finally report something that's actually really very, 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 very dire. Something that is actually really important, something that is problematic in a way that adults ought now stop just writing a child off as uyazihlanyisa, but realize that, okay, like, ushubile manje, like, whoa, there's like a whole pervert that's pursuing our children. So our mumbles caused her to simmer down as we are walking home, and she's out there yelling at us, right? And then she starts to basically, she pauses us and is like, okay, before we go home, and I tell grandmother what's going on over here. Calm down. Explain. Liring. What is going on? What's happening? Yeah, so she basically like now pulls the information out of us, right? And as we're crying, we're like, almost just indeed like what happened in the UK with that teenage girl following some sexual predator following some sexual predator that was out here kidnapping a 7-year-old, 8-year-old kid, 11-year-old kid, and she says to this kid, are you okay? 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 And this kid, after enough, bantering of this chick, finally is like, I don't know who this man is. He's not my dad, etc. Yeah, it took all that for the domestic worker as well to be like, what? Okay, fine. Like, what's going on? And when then she finally was like, what's going on, sufficiently because she overheard us mumbling concerning, okay, first, my cousin, that is Lerato, right? Lerato, the one that is targeted by Kefas, right? She then is like, basically she's like, there is this boy that's forcing me to be with him, and so we were running away from him. We took the long route in order to try and elude him. Alright? And then this lady, our domestic, right, is then like, how long has this been going on? She gets all the details, and she realizes that this has been a weeks-long issue. Like, it's been going on for some time now, and we've been coming home a little late because of this, and all the time. Like, the entire time we've been helping my cousin, taking the long drive for her on her behalf, running away from a local menace, running away from a local terrorist. Do you understand what I'm saying? And when she realized the seriousness of the situation, essentially she realized that Jack Brown Lana, we're dealing with the Jack Roll. We are dealing with a rapist that's trying to take the body of an 11-year-old girl. We were under 10. 8, 9, but she did look a little bit older, right? Here it is that we're dealing with some freak trying to sleep with a 9-year-old, an 8-year-old. The lady rightly recognized it for the dire situation that it was, but just the fact that we kept quiet for so long is the thing that I'm actually trying to appeal to black women concerning. You can't bottle stuff up and try to protect yourself from the cagey way that people react to black people, to black, especially women. You can't just take it, because you're going to eventually, in your own strength, in trying to run away from Kefas, you are going to eventually get accosted by him. One day, because herein lies the deal. This dude was all over, this dude was all over the Kasi. He was zolaring everywhere, touching base everywhere, and we were kids. And you know how it is with kids. Like, we get sent everywhere. We get sent to the shops to go buy bread. We get sent to the shops to go buy ice. My grandmother had, what do you call this? She used to sell the pia and whatnot, and the kouku, makipipi mazimba, di mayo. She used to have like a basic like little spaza shop thing going down. And the stock, we were sometimes sent to go and buy it. Largely the stock for her business was purchased by my older cousins who were out of school already. But sometimes my grandmother would send us. If at all, either they were not around or they were on a different errand, we would then be sent to go and buy makipipi, mazimba, whatnot, and then we would walk home carrying these things and then take them home type establishment thing. We were always going barefoot to the stores to go and, like I said, buy makipipi, buy mazimba, buy boro, tolebese, whatever, like bread, milk, whatnot. We were always being sent, and this guy was out there in the wilderness. Even on weekends, he could be Godzeles. He could be at the shop where we're going to buy mazimba. He was just a threat to us all. He was just a violent threat to us all. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, as much as we could strategize around escaping him from school, we could still get caught or found wanting by him on the weekend, even though it was rare on the weekend, because he tended to stick in generally the general vicinity or area of the school, because that's where he used to live. He tended to stick around there, but still that was always a threat. So this rando was just lurking. He was always a threat. He was always something that was going to creep up the skirts of people, and he needed to be apprehended. It's that basic, like this little animal needed to be apprehended. So ultimately, the domestic worker discovers that we are dealing with quite the situation on our hands. And he is old, right? He is a big boy, and he is exploiting little girls. So the domestic worker, then we get home, sniffing, teary-eyed and everything, and then she releases this information to my grandmother on some, I found these kids on the bustling main street on the side when I was zularing, and this is what they have to say. There's a boy that's harassing Lerato, and apparently this is what he does. He has a reputation. Basically, she gives the whole story, right? He accosts kids at her school, forces them to jola with him, and then takes them to his place and apparently, messes with them and makes them do din totsabachwabacholo. And she's actually now telling my grandmother. We are expecting my grandmother to yell at us and shout, but instead my grandmother immediately just got on the ball to essentially hook up some kind of a protection strategy. Do you understand? She realized that abantwana are in trouble. Our girls are going to get raped by some idiot, by some monster. And they would never have said anything if Ostrogina didn't find them bazola. If Ostrogina did not find them wandering the wilderness like the Hebrews in the Old Testament. Frankly, this would have, not ended well. at some point maybe this Kefas guy was going to get a hold of Lerato or of any of the other girls at some point, right? So my grandmother gets straight to work. We don't get hit. We get left alone. We don't get punished. We're still halfway waiting for punishment. Nothing happens. And then the solution then is embarked on. Later on that evening, our male cousin, like a boy that was like perhaps maybe 18, 19, 20, right? Out of school, but also quite young. And he was like buff. He was like into lifting weights and everything. In size. Type establishment thing. My grandmother was like, let's say his name was Stephen. She was like, Stephen, busy. There's like a boy that's busy intimidating, threatening the kids every single day. I want you to not only walk them to school in the mornings, but I want you after school. I want after school, like you must be there before after school is over and wait for them at the gate and then walk with them home, right? And if you see this boy, if he is spotted anyway, and help him understand that next time you are going to beat him down if you ever hear that he has touched any of our girls. And my cousin he was like, okay, sharp, got it. Like he took it as a mission. That's what's good. So this cousin of ours would walk us to school every day. And then after school, we would find him standing there. And lo and behold, we were among the only girls or the only kids in the school who could freely walk with this guy literally just standing in a corner. As a movie, as I'd say anything. And he had accosted my cousin and he had said, when are you my girlfriend? Yeah, well, he never touched her ever again. And this became a thing until literally that guy disappeared. You see, the Bible says, I once saw a wicked man spreading himself like a green laurel tree. And then next thing I looked for him in his place and he was nowhere to be found. Wicked people just disappear. They just disappear. So this dude was like a terror in the school. But somewhere along the way, he just disappeared. My cousin, on the day, like, there was a day when we came out, and then we were like, yo, that's the guy. Right? And my cousin Wamlanda, and was like, Yazini, like, you better leave Abantwana Bagiti alone. Because otherwise, next time, you see how big I am. Because he was a teenage boy. Like, that's the thing. He became so freaking namby-pamby. He was just like a boy now, right? He was the scrawny little teenage boy. And my cousin was a buff 20-something-year-old man. And in the climate of my cousin, this was Kefas. And my cousin was like my palm. He was like this inferno. Well, he was like a wax figurine that could be melted. He was just a boy to my cousin. But to us, he was Kefas. He was huge. To us, he was mammoth, but to my cousin, he was something that could be engulfed by a wave. And my cousin told him, I dare hear anything about what you're doing la. Kitlatla, lay 5 more me. I can handle you, gili 1, gili 5, fika a scheme, gili 1, kitlalinsa, ne, marako hutamo, le 4 of my own boys. I get one on a little howdy pinch, with whom you intimidate, banaba muskolo. Yeah, well, na, wampano mokakan, kinale by 5 back. But and really you better not come back here again. And this little boy was like, yeah, okay. While my cousin was talking, he was scared. Oh, but look at you, your loins, hey? Your manhood. That's out here salivating after little girls. Yeah, how it is that it was happy to rise to the occasion in the climate of little girls when they did not have a big brother. But now, it's shriveling up like a prune. Now that there is a man in the room that's out here telling you, yo, you better keep your dirty business. Go high school, that is your age. And if we protect the virtue, let her go and do whatever. You're not going to go and intimidate. My cousin threatened him, and for a season, he kind of hovered around the school. Do you understand? But at some point, he just disappeared. He stopped coming back. Because I suspect what he was probably thinking was that one day, we're going to get tumpat. One day, the big brothers of all these little girls, their dads, are going to vigilantically rise up against teenagers that have that have dropped out of school. I mean, they were not even gangsters, because they were criminals. But they didn't carry weapons. They didn't have like knives. They didn't have guns. Nothing. They were just naughty, and they were like experimenting with their sexuality on primary school kids. They were hormonal teenage boys experimenting with their sexuality on preteen girls, on primary school girls. And so, being children themselves, when the threat of apprehension reared its head in the ecosystem, they sort of kind of fizzled away. They dwindled. They retreated. Because nele bana, bane badlala ka bana, baba, thinking that it's like, ukjonja, ama kip estolo, except you're stealing virginities of little girls in primary school. So they retreated. After just a couple of weeks or days from the date of my cousin handling this menace and his boys, they slowly just withered away, and we never saw them again. So we didn't have to deal with Kefas again for much longer. If anything, we overheard that he was wreaking havoc in another part of town, in another school, come on the other side. Because where it is that we went to school, there was a cousin picking up some kids. There were people that were basically like the stories were spreading in the school about this terrorist, enough for not just my family to try and do something about the little menace, this beastly boy, but other people's families, other people's children. It became a story, like an urban legend that was just spreading about this boy, but it wasn't an urban legend, it was the real deal. Yeah, it became a whole thing known. It was such a problem in the school that eventually this guy had to retreat because where it is that he was committing his crimes was starting to become hostile against him. There was now a brewing vigilantic sentiment against him, and I believe that that's what caused him to ward off, to leave. But that whole story, Sakefas, of course, y'all know I'm about that analogy business. I'm using it to help you understand the kinds of menacing miscreants, the creeps, just the worthlessness of the men that keep on harassing me right now. And I need to use the bathroom. Kefase was a scrawny little teenage boy trying to solicit sex from minor girls because he imagined no one was coming through for them. He imagined he could keep on intimidating them and hovering about them with his girth in comparison to their tininess, and just continue in this fashion, imagining that a bunch of intimidated children, Batudzing, would not be intervened on behalf of. Now, Kefas was not told on by us, right? We did not tell on him to our parents because they are generally negligent. They were generally negligent, or they were generally rebuffy of whatever it is that we would say. Because, apparently children must be seen and not heard. Nonsense. They need to be seen and they need to be heard too, right? Very well, azang sam paisa. But guess what paisa'd him? Our activity. We long dried. We came home a little late. We were acting shifty and cagey. We were self-medicating. But our self-medication was eventually busted. Because that's just what God does. When there is a monolith in the land, when there is a problem in the country, because war criminals walking around with their big bazookas, walking around with their big AK-47s, walking around with their big bombs, their rifles, whatever, are so intimidating to the village that nobody is ever going to raise the issue up with the United Nations. Nobody's going to raise it with Amnesty International. Nobody is going to call the police because generally the police tend to be in cahoots with a bazooka holder. God, will cause an intimidated village of people to get help in spite of themselves, in spite of their fear, in spite of their intimatatedness, in spite of how they feel about the fact that no one is coming for us, and so they self-medicate. They come up with solutions to a terrorist that is a tick in the room, a pest. It gotta die. It needs to be doomed out the way. Pesticide needs to be poured out blanketly on its head. Fry it to death in a pan. It needs to be ended, neutralized, made to be extinct. And yet people are freaking tiptoeing around it. When people are tiptoeing around a tick, like some kind of a parasite that's just eating the flesh of a society, the Lord is God. He's in the heavens. He does whatever he pleases. He does not need people to get over how scared they are to intervene. The Lord does not need somebody to be a protagonist for a cause, rise up against stuff. Essentially, what are all of our solutions, right? I'm gonna come up with some kind of a self-awareness or a motivational speaking channel, or I'm gonna create awareness through YouTube or TikTok to try and deal no Kefas. God does not need people to raise issues. Because you see, that's just the thing about a holy, benevolent, omnipresent, omniscient God. He can't stand unequal scales. The Lord hates injustice. Our God is holy, and that which is wicked cannot merely just kind of gather dust and exist in perpetuity in an ecosystem without him picking a bone with it. The Lord is the one that picks a controversy with the nations. It's not the nations that come up with a TikTok page or a hashtag on Twitter or X to deal with gender-based violence. Are you serious? Like, the Lord does not need a human race that has got a natural inclination within them to ignore factors, issues, matters, because it's just too exhausting to deal with them. A human race that has a proclivity towards fear of man and not so much of God, and so for those reasons, they will let stuff slide under the carpet. They will let blood-drinking vampiric structures to linger and linger. They will allow a flesh-eating bacteria to just keep on gnawing away, creating a necrosis in the body of a person, a sepsis that's just spreading, a cancer that's just spreading and spreading, mushrooming. Yeah, people do that. They don't seek out medical attention for illnesses because they're scared what people might think if at all they get diagnosed with some stuff. Human beings are the ones that leave stuff to fester, to rot, because they are successfully scared into a corner by those who imagine they can exalt themselves above the stars of heaven and be like God, take over heaven, could be like the Most High. Those who, like their daddy the devil, rock up in a village and intimidate some village men and women. Yeah, mankind has a tendency towards just hunkering down and being mum, keeping quiet about something that needs to be uprooted. People have a thing about just sitting out, resting in rubbish and vomit. They just swim in mire and dirt. They allow themselves to sink into quicksand and just disappear, even though there's like a stick that somebody has given you to pull you out. People are like that. So, thank the Lord that this here is true about the word of God, right? That he remains faithful when we're faithless, for he cannot deny himself. Also, it is written in God's word that we love him because he loved us first, right? God is proactive because imagine building a house and then just kind of leaving it to have squatters just sit and pull out every tile from the floor. Squatters unhinge and unscrew every cupboard in the kitchen. Squatters break the lamps with their bats. Squatters consume all the food in the refrigerator, in your refrigerator. Squatters rip the wall-to-wall carpet from the walls just for the sake of doing it. It's fun, okay? It's fun. Just because they can't stand the fact that somebody dared build a house and live in it, seeing as they're hobos on the street. So they rock up and they vandalize your house. Now, imagine somebody doing that to your house and you standing back because you're scared that the people that are vandalizing might kill you or they might hurt you. I'm sorry, if it's your house and there are squatters doing that to your house, you don't need anybody to call the police on these squatters. You don't need anybody to vigilantically ransack or manhandle the squatters. You will go with your own rifle and you will shoot every last one of these monsters down, bury them in a shallow grave, and then clean up your house. And then put a big fat sign at the door saying trespassers will be prosecuted or shot if at all they are unprosecutable. You will basically warn them in advance that if you dare enter, there are 20 other people that are in shallow graves, just like a kilometer from this particular house. You will join them. You will be number 21. You'll be number 21. Yeah. If at all you are any kind of home owner or property owner, if at all people were to do that on your house, on your like little general patch of land, you would kill them rightly within the law, as indeed you have been given rights underneath your particular country's laws. You threaten, you first warn them, don't get out. If they don't want to and they insist, you can literally shoot them dead. You can drive them out, and if they don't want to leave, you can put them in the ground. Well, the earth belongs to Jesus Christ. We get that the God of this world, who is Satan, has been given permission on it temporarily. Do you understand? But we are dealing with a God here that has ubiquitously poured out his common grace on the human race. John 3:16, he so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whomsoever shall believeth upon him will not perish but have everlasting life. He therefore has a controversy to pick with those who have no regard, first and foremost, for his name, and secondly, for those who are intimidated from embracing his name by those who have no regard for his name. He has a problem with an earth full of people out here causing fear of man instead of fear of God because of how much they can just flail either their magic wands or their rifles or their, you get my point. Do you understand what I'm saying? The Lord made this earth for his own glory. The whole earth is full of his glory. It's his house. And if at all people are being prevented or blocked from loving him when they would, if at all they were not so intimidated all the time, he's going to move the monolithic structure out of the way. Do you understand what I'm saying? That is making people scared to love him. He allowed for the death of his own child that you might have eternal life. And when then there is a Cephas trying to steal the virtue of virgin preteen girls, ain't no police report necessary. Ain't no vigilante justice necessary. Ain't no you going personally to, report the matter to the principal of the school necessary. God will just take up this cause with or without the individuals that are timid and scared on the ground doing anything about it. He is not going to let you just destroy his house. Do you understand? Because this here is God's house and you are ripping out tiles from the kitchen floor. You are unhinging kitchen cupboards. You are defecating on his carpet. You are ripping out wallpaper, leaving it scabbed. I do apologize. A disturbance does not need to be reported to the police. The owner of that property will walk up with a rifle, bah, and knock you out. And then renovate his house, fix it, following which he will put a big sign outside saying you dare come in next time, you will die just like the other guys. You have no idea just how much grace you have been awarded. God is slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love, not willing that anybody should perish, but that all should come to a knowledge of him. But when you stand on the chests of his disciples, and when also you prevent the gospel from being proliferated, nja o tlo tlhokafala la nkutlo.